It's Shanda Sumpter, and I'm here with Joe Polish, rock star. You are joining us for 6 a.m. Coffee with Shanda, which is insane that Joe Polish is up doing a live with me at 6 a.m. for you. So welcome, Joe. I'm happy to have you here.
Great to be here, Shanda. Super happy.
Awesome. Well, so people always ask me, they're like, Shanda, who do you study with in business? And there's a lot of really great people. I have to say there's a lot of great masterminds out there, places to study. But there is a point where you actually just want to hang out with entrepreneurs of many different, talents, businesses that typically are succeeding at a higher level than you by far to help stretch you to the next level. And that's what I think you've created. You've created something called Genius Network. That's where I study. I choose to study. I've been choosing to study there for the last couple of years. And I just have never experienced anything like it in any other mastermind. So I do want to just share who you are, how you created Genius, and then I have some interesting questions to ask you.
Cool. Yes. Well, thank you, first off. Well, who I am, I'm an entrepreneur just like pretty much everyone who's out there listening, watching, running a company. I learned some skill sets because given the choice of starving or eating, I didn't want to starve. And I spent a couple of years going deeply in debt when I was in my 20s, trying to figure out how to make, out of all things, a carpet cleaning business work. I happened to stumble into this accidental business. That certainly was not my, dream growing up that I was going to, be a carpet cleaner. But I happened to be in this business, and I learned the skill set of direct response marketing and communications and relationship building in a way to get people to buy something that they didn't even want to buy. Meaning no one in the right mind would want to, hire a carpet cleaner. I don't think there's anyone that's watching us right now that's out of all of the things that they're going to do over the next week, month, year, they're not like, boy, I can't wait till the cat pees in the corner, or I'm going to have guests over for some holiday or something and I have to clean the carpets. I mean, nobody wants to do it. So I was in that business early on. And so most of the things that have been created in my life, Genius Network, which is now, the highest level group in the world for industry transformers, people like you. I mean, we attract the very best in the world in their category, is all in a lot of ways an accident. It was just a strategic byproduct of trying something and paying attention of what the world would invest in, what they would do, and building a business around it, around my skills and around my talents. And now it's an amazing business that generates millions of dollars. But I would do it even if I wasn't paid for it. So it's
I think that's the key, right? So you didn't go out and necessarily, I guess people would say keeping up with the Joneses, but I think in marketing people like go and study with a mentor and then they rip off their stuff. I'm sure people have tried to rip off Genius Network, right?
I think it's one of the most knocked off groups in the world.
Right. So, okay. So it's like people go and study something and then they rip it off because they think that's the it factor to becoming financially free. And I think you and I have a very similar thought process on this, which is like, you created Genius out of your natural talents. Like you said, it was an accident. So you talk about something called an ELF business. Can we talk about that?
Totally. Because when I first started in business, I didn't use this language back then, but now I've given languaging to it and acronyms to it, which you can have an ELF business, which is easy, lucrative, and fun, or you can have a half business, which is hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. So do you want ELF or do you want half? And it could be hard, annoying, lucrative, and frustrating, because we both know people that they make a lot of money, but they hate their lives. They hate their businesses. It's just a constant grind. And so if you're going to work, if you're going to show up, and everyone gets the same 24 hours as anyone else. So it's what you do with the rituals, what you do with the strategies, what you do with your time, what you do with your attention, that makes all of the difference in the world. Because, I'm going to go throughout the day today and I'm going to either have a great day or I'm going to have a crappy day, but truthfully, it's going to be a bunch of things in between. And the more that I can build ELF decisions, clients, strategies, processes, methodologies, and relationships into it, I'm just going to have a much more enjoyable business. So for me, it's not just a way of making money. It's what's the point of money? What's the point of profit if you can't enjoy it? And so my whole thing is how do I really set things up so that the conditions, in order to have the conditions, and I mean, you know this better than anyone with all of the things that you do and how you coach people, in order to have conditions in your life that are amazing, that are fantastic, that make you happy, you need to set it up in a certain way. And some people set up their businesses to where they're half. They're always hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. They don't do it consciously, and a lot of times it's just because they don't know what they're doing.
So, okay, so are you saying that you never have a hard moment or never have had a hard moment in building Genius? It's all been like, woo, it's just amazing. You know what I mean? Like,
No, it's actually all of the things that I've done have been like a byproduct of a shitstorm. They're things that, things that just didn't work, and the ability to transform them. Almost all money that is made out of bad news. So other people's, and we had this discussion at the last Genius Network meeting, other people's bad news is your good news. And that's an interesting concept for people to grasp. It's like, well, what do you mean by that? And as an example, if you're hungry, that's bad news. But if there's a restaurant, that's good news. If you break your ankle, that's bad news. But if you can go to a doctor that can help you with it, that's good news. If someone's bored, that's bad news. But if you can go to someone that will, a comedy club, or you can go to a movie, whatever, that's good news. If you don't know what you're doing in business, that's bad news. If they can find Shanda Sumpter, that's good news, because even right now, whatever I can possibly say and what you do on a obviously really continual basis is giving people ways to think about their thinking, give them ways and strategies to actually get stuff done. So almost everything that I have created in my life came out of adversity. I mean, half my time now, as you know, is spent helping people with addiction and recovery. I'm wanting to take my marketing skills and help change the global conversation about how people view and treat addicts with compassion instead of judgment, because I have this calling, because there's a lot of human suffering out there. And I myself nearly died as an addict when I was 18 years old. In my worst state, I weighed 105 pounds from freebasing cocaine and doing drugs continuously. So, and then later in adult life, it became behavior addictions, work addictions, sex addiction, obsessions. And so I've just had to deal with, even though I had financial success, I actually had to deal with a tremendous amount of mental anxiety and angst and anguish. And so ELF to me takes on a whole nother meaning. Most of the time I talk about it in the context of business, but I actually need to set my life up so I don't put myself into success traps or put myself into traps that will cause me to want to self-soothe with self-destructive sort of behaviors. And so, yeah, I take the ELF thing very seriously, even though most of the time I'm just talking about marketing strategies that are ELF. But you literally, I evaluate people, like, is this person ELF or is this person half? And I only align myself with people and activities as best I can that are aligned with me. And do I make mistakes all the time? Do I screw up all the time? But it's part of the process.
Bringing something to my awareness, so the whole ELF thing, and taking it to the depth that you take it, and how there's a breakdown or there's like a survival mechanism or a shitstorm, as you call it, and then you create something that creates a thriving life out of it, right? And
yes.
So when people say to me, like, there's always this conversation that you have to have a strong why to be able to get through the shitstorm, right? And there's nothing stronger than an authentic why, because I think so many people sit and they're like trying to manufacture. They're trying to manufacture some sort of a deep why, but they're not really connected to it, right? So speak a little bit into that, because you've been able to take this, like, I just want to go deeper into this. So somebody was like, okay, Joe, how do I start assessing ELF and making my decisions? How do I actually, like, give them something specific that they could actually take and do something with it to start to create an ELF life around them that's meaningful?
Okay, well, what I would do is my friend Dan Sullivan, who Dan is the founder of Strategic Coach. I do a podcast with him, so I spend a lot of time talking with Dan. And so Dan has this great question where he's like, who do you want to be a hero to? So when people are trying to discover what lights them up, what can they put their heart and soul into, if you focus solely on just yourself, sometimes you get lucky and you're like, yeah, I mean, I really have this inborn talent, or I've developed this sort of thing. But a lot of people, even me, I mean, I think most people wake up every day and they bumble their way through life. I mean, I bumble my way through life. I just happen to do it with some things I've figured out along the way. But I always focus on, who do I want to be a hero to? If there was, if I had all the money in the world, what would I spend my time doing? And if that doesn't even help someone, think about when you were a little kid and you just could, if you had the ability. I mean, some people had tremendously difficult childhoods, so they have a hard time tapping in to, joy. But what was it in your life that gives you joy? What was it? Who are the people? What are the subjects? What are the things? What are the activities? And what problem does that solve, if there is a problem, or what opportunity does that help people reach?
What bad news?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what bad news does that become good news for?
Exactly. So, I want to be a hero to entrepreneurs and people that struggle with addiction. I don't spend a lot of time in the political world, the academic world. I mean, there's a lot of amazing things that are out there, but for the most part, I'm very clear on who I want to help, because I'm very interested in entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are these crazy people that they make it up and they make it real. So if you have that sort of bug with that creativity, no one else understands you, well, then hang out with some people that will reinforce that, find them. And that may mean getting out of your comfort zone, but the truth is, everything requires getting out of your comfort zone. Feelings are not facts. Sometimes people are waiting for that joy moment to just, lightning struck and I just know exactly what to do. You're never going to have that unless you're really freaking lucky. And I mean, there are going to be signs. And one of those signs may be today. Here's me and you talking to someone, and it's like, today is the last day of the way you used to be. And people have to get to that moment where, like, okay, today, this moment is the last day of the way that I used to be. My whole life up to this point, good, bad, it doesn't matter. That was all, you 2.0, whatever your name is, Joe, Judy, Shanda, whatever, that whatever happened in the past up to this moment is just 1.0. Now you're going to go to 2.0. What's your new life going to look like? Where's the focus going to be? And sometimes it's just simply, deciding, because the term decide comes from, the Latin term homicide is to cut off. You have to cut off things in the past in order to go forward. So, for me, it's just like, all right, who do I care the most about? Who do I want to be a hero to? Is there anything you would literally die for? Is there a person or a cause that you would literally die for? And within that, there are clues when it comes to just where should I focus. Now, that being...
Sorry, I want to just interject I just want to interject one thing, just even like finding your thing. Like you just mentioned Dan Sullivan, who I love. And I met him through you. And Dan has severe ADD, right? And so he spent his whole business is around how do you get the entrepreneur to think differently and focus in and create that desired result, right? Like, and keep extending it and growing it bigger, faster, more fun, like the whole bit, right? And so when you think about that, he had to solve the shitstorm of the fact that when you have ADD to that level, which I just found out, I just did Dr. Amon's brain scan, and they're like secretly saying in the back, my doctor said, they were asking me if I'd seen my 4:00 scans yet. And she said, no. And she says, why? And she says, I don't understand why she's here. There's like nothing going on. Like, her brain is great. And I'm like, I felt this moment of going, shit, I don't have ADD. Every entrepreneur has ADD. It's like such a funny thing, right? Like, so, but it's like whatever your shitstorm is, right? Whatever your shitstorm is, like Dan Sullivan's ADD, he's created an entire business around being better at it and solving his problem than anybody else. And now he's paid so finely for creating something called a self-managed company, right? So I just think it's important to be able to go through these moments, because so many people hit these walls and then they back up into addiction, or they back up into like giving up, or they back up into I'm not feeling the spark or the light anymore. I hear this with spiritual people all the time. They're like, God told me to go another way. You guys, I read the Bible all the time. He gave you the vision in the first place. Go through and finish it. It's actually becoming a completer to see what it actually looks like. Become a winner. So go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, Joe, but it was just an important distinction for people to see.
Oh, yeah. And here's the thing, like to talk about addiction, the opposite of addiction is connection. And when people are disconnected from themselves, from other people, that's painful. That there's real suffering in being disconnected. It could be lonely. It could be anxiety. It could be depression. It could be fear. It could be sadness. I mean, there's all these myriad of human emotions that we feel. And so whatever connects us, be it, a source. I mean, someone could be an atheist. There's still energy. There's still something out there that connects you with yourself. And when you're disconnected from yourself, you're disconnected with others. And when it comes to going out and building a business, I mean, we are more connected electronically than we ever have been in human history, but we're more disconnected from a tribal and human level. I mean, if you're going to get on social media, this would be a way to do it, because you're actually at least conversing and talking and engaging with someone live. I mean, get to as close in person as humanly possible. Sometimes things that just make a huge difference, and you teach a lot of this to people, is literally, get away from just constantly being connected, go outside, exercise, have friendships, develop those sort of things. And if you're a very introverted, shy person, there are some, meetup groups. There's anything that can get you out of, a stuck environment. So when people aren't making progress, it's usually because they're disconnected or they feel struck, or in many cases, what I've found is unresolved trauma. I mean, that addiction, and my friend Gabor Mate, says he believes that ADD is a response to trauma. So a lot of people that start businesses had very adverse childhoods. They had very adverse circumstances, and they used entrepreneurship and tried to create something golden out of something that was really shitty. And silent battles are the hardest battles to fight. And like I would venture to say, without even knowing much about what happened in your childhood, there were some wars and a lot of silent battles that you had to come out of and you had to fight. Which
my mom's boyfriend beat the shit out of me. Do you know what I mean? And my mom had no idea. I mean, he used to tie my hands together, my feet together, and I had to sleep on my stomach. And every time I'd lift my head, he'd hit the back of my head so that my head would go back in the pillow. And that was because, he was obviously mad at my mom. He had massive jealousy. He never touched me like sexually, but he definitely hurt me and he scared the shit out of me. And it was always because I didn't play good enough at soccer or I didn't eat all my food. Like, it was always a good enough concept, right? And with that, I was always stupid. And so when I had to battle getting up on stages or coming into different rooms, it's like this underlining scenario, you're stupid. And then that's when I hear like smarter people than me, which I love being around, speaking. I'm like, oh my God, I'm already doing that advice campaign, or I'm already doing that whatever. And it's like breaking these new paradigms of what's possible. What do you think is what do you think is your most, I don't know if it's asset is the word, but like what is the most important thing you do for your business?
Well, for one, I'm constantly being as useful to people as I can through giving them strategies. For instance, my podcast, I have 4 different podcasts that I put out to the world for free. And so a lot of really, I have millions of people that have downloaded my marketing podcast and my Genius Network podcast and things like that when you combine them all. So just putting that out there is really valuable. The second is the intensive study of direct response marketing, teaching people ELF strategies. Like, for instance, just to give some context, the difference between selling and marketing is selling is what you do when you're on the phone or face-to-face with somebody. Marketing is what you do to get them on the phone, on to your website, to your social media, wherever, properly positioned. So by the time they end up talking to you or one of your team members, they're pre-interested, pre-motivated, pre-qualified, and predisposed to do business with you. So I spend a lot of time getting people to, be positioned, because marketing is selling in advance. And with the right type of marketing, it makes selling easy and ideally unnecessary. So early on, when I was a dead broke carpet cleaner, one of the first strategies I did was I read this line from Gary Halbert, who was this, he passed away, but Gary Halbert had become a friend, and he was this crazy, insane marketer, but he was just a brilliant copywriter. He would, and he had this line where he's like, any problem in the world could be solved with the right sales letter. And I thought to myself, okay, if any problem in the world can be solved with the right sales letter, is that actually true? And if it is, what is that sales letter? Because you could be the best think of selling as influence and think of marketing as storytelling. So teaching people how to tell stories, teaching people how to not focus on themselves, but focus on others. To go back to what you said earlier, I wish we had more time, because I could spend an hour talking to you about just the byproduct of you having to go through the shit that you went through, which I'm very sorry. I hate hearing things like that. And at the same time, I know I'm looking at a person who's transformed pain into helping other people, into helping themselves. And so, so through that adversity, you had to figure out how to deal with a lot of shit. And one of the greatest assets that we all have, everyone watching this, is the pain. If you can transform that pain, not into destruction or to regret or to remorse, but into saying, how can I help other people that are going through something like that or worse? How can I be of service? Because that gets you out of yourself. I say all the time, if you think you're having a crappy day, go volunteer at a nursing home, an assisted living home, an animal shelter, a homeless clinic, disaster relief, do a children's hospital, a burn unit. I mean, you'll immediately get an amount of inspiration that you can sit and sometimes read every self-help book on the planet, and it will not do the same thing of just getting with another human being that's in pain and helping pull them out of that pain. I mean, that's the way that I keep myself inspired and things like that. So anyway, so going back to the marketing, I wrote my first sales letter. I actually paid a copywriter to help me write my first sales letter, which is a consumer's guide to carpet cleaning. And this was before the internet even existed. And I realized that one of the most effective ways to sell people is to educate them. There's all these things that people, they don't know that they don't know. And if you educate, totally, yeah. A thing for everyone to remember is life gives to the giver and takes from the taker.
So
a lot of,
I hear you. I resonate with you so much because the fact that you get that way of being in a huge way. But I was just talking to somebody at Genius that is just lovely, just such an amazing woman. And I was sharing with her, I said, who do you admire and why do you admire them? Like, who's the most giving person you know? And she said, Joe Polish. And I said, so then notice that you're afraid to do a business deal because you're focused on like, what am I going to get out of it versus what would make me happy and how do I create a massive win for this person? Like, focus out. Like, you don't have to squeeze every ounce of juice out of everything. It's about like that business deal is going to lead you to the next one and to the next one and to the next one. It's going to keep growing as long as you're focusing out, right? And I think sometimes people hear you say this or hear me say this, and they don't get it because they think, well, I give to my clients or I give to my friends. And it's like, what about giving to some of the other people who are continuously around you and just becoming a way of being, a way of life? Like, I can't be in front of you, Joe, and I've never seen, and I mean, everybody knows this who knows you. If you're in front of Joe Polish and he can help you, he's going to help you. But it's not even like a strategy. It's a way of being, because there's always going to be somebody or something, whether it's just a shoulder to cry on or it's giving advice or connecting with someone. There's always a way that we can help people who are in our space. And when you actually start to develop a way of being where you just focus out, life really does start to work.
Yes.
It becomes less stressful. You don't have to worry about, did I get this business deal right? Is this video going to be perfect? Like, you stop center focusing and you start outward focusing, and the stress starts to go down.
Absolutely. And I hope people can grasp that, because a lot of times if they hear it but they don't experience it, because at the end of the day, people want to have an experience. They don't want to have an explanation. And when you can actually experience that happening, it's true. To give you an example, and I didn't even realize this, like every night at the end of the day, I actually journal, and I do a quick journal of like what happened in my day. And yesterday I was a very busy day. I have a very busy week coming up. I have a Genius Network event. I'm going to be filmed for a documentary on addiction later today. I have Dean Jackson, who's a great marketing friend, flying into town. I've got 65 people that are going to be here for a packed meeting, so like a lot of stuff. And I was like, on a Sunday, I'm going to do some work and get some, which, I would prefer have having, a free day, but I just had a lot of stuff to do. And so I went to meet with a friend at downtown Tempe, which is like in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And there was like a little farmer's market, and they were like, screw it, let's go look at this thing. And I ended up getting like caught up with this guy that made custom vintage lamps out of old cameras. And I found an old coffee maker that I like Dave Asprey, who's a Genius Network member. He's the founder of a company called Bulletproof Coffee. And so I saw this old coffee maker, and so I started filming this guy. I literally put it on my Joe Polish fan page on Facebook, me filming this guy. And in the middle of just filming this guy and wanting to share with people like how cool I thought, this guy had no idea who I was, not realizing that I could change his business in like 2 seconds. I'm going to actually do. But I just loved what this guy was doing. There was no reason I needed to do this other than I bought $800 worth of freaking stuff from this guy also accidentally. I wasn't out there looking for this shit. And so I start filming it, and a guy is watching me there who's like, hears me say, and I'm getting this for Dave Asprey, my buddy that owns Bulletproof Coffee, and he sees that, and while I'm filming this, he comes up to me. I don't even think he realizes I'm doing a Facebook Live video. He goes, Dave's my neighbor. I go, in Vancouver? He's like, yeah. He goes, I'm down there for a business deal. I have a device that helps get rid of Lyme disease. And he goes, and I heard you talk about addiction. And he goes, and if you wear this thing, he shows me this device, it actually helps when people are going through a craving state. And I'm like, well, you know, I actually have this guy on the video saying something at the very end because he's there. Turns out this guy sends, you know, we exchange information after, and he's literally joining Genius Network. And I was like, I was like going, this is, you know, I was kind of like frustrated with myself because I got caught up trying to help someone, thinking, why do I, you know, this codependent side of me, I just want to try to help everybody. And I'm sitting there helping this guy that makes these vintage lamps, having long conversations when I need to be, quote unquote, working. But what the strategic byproduct that came out of it was in the process, it didn't even occur to me last night. I was like, holy shit, I made a $25,000 sale because I'm videotaping this guy that makes these vintage lamps by just being useful. Now, I've had 1,000 things happen like that you never get anything out of. But it's just the fact that I'm like that I was like going, you know what? That's like a higher power to me. That is karma. That is the universe saying, you know what, Joe, you're really helping that guy. And the guy that I did this for, his friend who was there, she's been in recovery for 2.5 years. Her mother died 34 days ago. She's in a lot of grief. She said, I felt like walking to a bar. She's been sober for over 3 years. She goes, I felt like drinking. I came out of the house so I could sit in with this guy, her friend who makes these vintage lamps. And she goes, and I met you. And she's like, and I feel so much better now because I was in a really bad, and we ended up having a conversation about going through the grief of her mother and saying, yeah, you know, I told her about how both my parents have passed away and how I was the primary caretaker for my father and how you just got to go out and get connected. So the point is, it's about connecting. And if, you know, I learned something early on, which is, you know, be nice to the people you meet on the way up. They're the same people you meet on the way down. And wherever someone is not right.
Just quoted you on that the other day to me. I've never heard you say that, but somebody just quoted, I'll keep that offline, but there's somebody who had spoken something negative about Genius. And I was like, that's really shitty because every time that person says that, it makes them look like a total jerk. And it was Jason who actually said, yeah, you know, every time he says it, I think the same thing. And he goes, Joe always says, be careful, be nice to the people on the way up because you're going to meet them on the way down. And I was like, that's so interesting. Anyway, we have to wrap up. Any final last words?
My final last words were, you know, winners find ways to win and losers find ways to lose. And if there's areas of your life that are working, keep doing more of them. If nothing else, utilize, you know, Coffee with Shanda as a reminder service of what are the success rituals and principles that you could apply to your life. Create rituals around you that actually work. When I say life gives to the giver and takes from the taker, I mean, align yourself with people that appreciate you. Align yourself with people and activities that give you rewards, because you can spend a lot of time being a giver to the wrong people. Meaning, you know, after a point, if you're going to be with people that are not aligned or not reciprocal or not caring, that don't have integrity, you know, cut all ties with dishonest, negative, and lazy people, and surround yourself with people that build you up, with activities that build you up. And when it comes to reading and what to study and who to follow, just ask yourself the question, what needs solved? If you ask yourself what needs solved, then you're like, okay, that's what I'm going to read about today. That's what I'm going to study today. That's what I'm going to learn from. Because people get caught up in a bunch of things that have no relevance to where their life goals are, what their purpose or mission pursuit is. And, just anything that helps give you direction, confidence, and clarity, immerse yourself in anything that's your kryptonite, that takes away the pain, that causes pain, that causes you to get derailed. Even Superman or Superwoman, there's kryptonite. So figure out what your kryptonite is and set up ways to avoid that, and immerse yourself in things that actually work. And don't expect any of this to be easy in the beginning. In order to have an ELF business, you have to set things up so it becomes ELF. You don't just fall into ELF, which is why most people get frustrated. But running a business is a constant struggle. There's always going to be things, but learn to embrace the pain, learn to embrace the struggle, because out of that, there's all those things that seem to oppose our goals are the raw material needed to achieve them. That's something that Dan Sullivan says. And so all the shit in your life that seems to be an obstacle in your way is actually the raw material if you assemble it in a way. And that's what everyone's doing by showing up. The fact that you're here right now listening to this is you showed up. Just keep showing up for your life. Learn as much as you can. Help other people. And learn as much as you can about entrepreneurship, and you're probably going to do okay, and you may do amazing. You may change the world.
There's some people asking, Joe, my daughter is struggling with addiction. I'd love to hear and know more of what you're doing and how I can support it. What's the best way for people to connect with you if they want to know more about Genius or addiction or any of those things?
Okay, for all my business stuff, just simply my name, Joe Polish. You can put it into Google and find a million things, or you can go to joepolish.com, which leads to Genius Network and my podcast and all my stuff. joepolish.com is like the air traffic control for my business and entrepreneurial stuff. When it comes to addiction, there's two websites I have. One is Artists with an S, Artists, ARTISTS, FOR Addicts. ADDICTS, Artists for Addicts, which is a platform where we're using art as a force for good to help people with just understanding how some of the world's greatest artists and achievers struggle with addiction, and how we're utilizing art is one method. As far as addiction recovery stuff, like the question about someone's daughter who's struggling with addiction, geniusrecovery.com. Geniusrecovery.com. There's nothing for sale there. It's videos, education with me interviewing some of the top doctors and other people struggling with addiction, telling their stories, and then it lists every type of meeting, be it 12-step meetings, or if someone doesn't like 12 steps of meetings, there's different sort of communities, because nobody recovers in isolation. So there's podcasts, there's resources where you can find meetings all over the world, and then there's education, and it's all free. Read an open letter to anyone struggling with addiction is on geniusrecovery.com, and then my interview with Dr. Gabor Mate is amazing.
Yeah,
and
Gabor, definitely watch that, because there's things about addiction that I think people is not talked about in mainstream. I mean, that's one of the great things about being around Joe is like your microbiome and how that affects addiction, like all these different things that are important to address if you want to get to the other side. All right, Joe, I love and adore you. Hold on one second. I'm just going to end Coffee with Shanda. Goodbye, everybody. I'll miss you over the evening until tomorrow morning, where I'll see you at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow. Talk to you soon. Bye.